Hello everyone, myself Dr. Anand Kansagra. Today we are going to discuss about two very much important topics, arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis. These are the learning objectives for today's lecture. Define arteriosclerosis, enumerate the types of arteriosclerosis, describe the types of arteriosclerosis, then define atherosclerosis and describe the risk factors for atherosclerosis, then describe pathogenesis and morphology of atherosclerosis, and lastly describe consequences of atherosclerosis. First of all, we will start the discussion with arteriosclerosis. Arteriosclerosis is a general term that is used to include all the conditions with thickening and hardening of the arterial walls. Atherosclerosis is also a type of arteriosclerosis. So, arteriosclerosis is a broad term. Now, the following morphological entities are included under the term arteriosclerosis. These are senile arteriosclerosis, which affects the arteries, then hypertensive arteriosclerosis, which affects arterioles, then Monckeberg's arteriosclerosis, also known as medial Kelspic sclerosis, that affects arteries, and atherosclerosis, that also affects arteries. And as I said, atherosclerosis is the most common and most important form of arteriosclerosis. Now, we will start the discussion with senile arteriosclerosis. It is the thickening of media and intima of the arteries seen due to aging, and the changes are non-selective and affect most of the arteries, and these are possibly induced by stress and strain on the vessel wall during life, that is due to aging effect. Now, morphological features of senile arteriosclerosis are fibroelastosis and elastic reduplication. In fibroelastosis, the intima and media are thickened due to increase in elastic and collagen tissue, and in elastic reduplication, the internal elastic lamina is split or reduplicated so that two wavy layers can be seen, and eventually the fibrotic changes result in age-related elevation of systolic blood pressure. Now, hypertensive arteriosclerosis. There are mainly three types of arteriolosclerosis that can develop due to hypertension. These are hyaline arteriolosclerosis, hyperplastic arteriolosclerosis, and necrotizing arteriolitis. Now, hyaline arteriolosclerosis is a common arteriolar lesion that may be seen physiologically due to aging, or it may occur pathologically in benign nephrosclerosis that is seen in hypertensive patient, or it can be seen as a part of microangiopathy in diabetic patient. And the morphological changes that happen in hyaline arteriosclerosis are the vascular walls are thickened and the lumina are narrowed or even obliterated. Microscopically, the thickened vessel wall shows structureless eosinophilic hyaline material in the tunica intima and tunica media. Pathogenesis. The exact pathogenesis of hyaline arteriosclerosis is not very much established, but here is the hypothesis. Hypothesis is the lesion result most probably from leakage of components of plasma across the vascular endothelium, and the permeability of the vessel wall is increased due to hemodynamic stress, that is in hypertension, or due to any metabolic stress in diabetes, so that these plasma components leak out and get deposited in the vessel wall. Now, second variant of hypertensive arteriolosclerosis is hyperplastic arteriolosclerosis, in which it is a characteristic lesion of malignant hypertension. Now, what is malignant hypertension? When systolic blood pressure goes above 180 millimeter of mercury and diastolic pressure goes above 120 millimeter of mercury, that is known as malignant hypertension. And the pathogenesis for hyperplastic arteriolosclerosis is, again, it is not very much clear, but probably these changes result due to endothelial injury from systemic hypertension, leading to increased permeability of the endothelium. And due to this endothelial injury, there is a reaction of tissue, that is a healing reaction. In healing reaction occurs in the form of proliferation of smooth muscle cells with fibrosis. That is hyperplasia of smooth muscle cells in tunica, intima and media. Morphological features. The morphological changes affect mainly intima, especially of the interlobular arteries in the kidneys, and intimal thickening in the form of onion skin lesion consists of loosely placed concentric layers of hyperplastic intimal smooth muscle cells like the bulb of an onion, and the basement membrane is also thickened. So, mainly the lesion is affecting tunica intima. Now, third variant of hypertensive arteriolosclerosis is necrotizing arteriolitis. In few cases of severe hypertension and malignant hypertension, parts of small arteries and arterioles show changes of hyaline sclerosis, and part of the arteries show necrosis, or in some cases necrosis may be superimposed on hyaline sclerosis. However, hyaline sclerosis may not be always present in the vessel wall. And the morphological features of necrotizing arteriolitis are, besides the changes of hyaline sclerosis, the changes of necrotizing arteriolitis include fibrinoid necrosis of the vessel wall and acute inflammatory infiltrate of neutrophils in the adventitia. Pathogenesis is, since necrotizing arteriolitis occurs in vessels in which there is sudden and great elevation of pressure, the changes are said to result from direct physical injury to the vessel wall. This is the figure showing all the three types of hypertensive arteriosclerosis. First one is, figure A is showing hyaline arteriosclerosis, then figure B is showing hyperplastic arteriolosclerosis, and figure C is showing necrotizing arteriolitis. Now, you can see in hyaline arteriolosclerosis, you can see this is the arrow is showing hyaline material, and in hyperplastic arteriolosclerosis, you can see the arrow shows proliferating smooth muscle cells, and in necrotizing arteriolitis, you will see proliferation of smooth muscle cells as well as presence of fibrinoid necrosis and presence of inflammatory cells, that is polymorphonuclear cells. These are neutrophils. Now, Monckeberg's arteriosclerosis, that is also known as medial calcific sclerosis. It is a calcification of the tunica media of large and medium-sized muscular arteries, especially of the extremities and of the genital tract in the persons past the age of 50. The condition occurs as an age-related degenerative process, and therefore it is an example of dystrophic calcification, and it has little or no clinical significance. Pathogenesis, again it is not very much clear, but it is considered as age-related physiological change. Morphological features of Monckeberg's arteriosclerosis. Medial calcification is often an incidental finding in X-rays of the affected sites having muscular arteries. The deposition of calcium salts in the media produces pipe stem like rigid tubes without causing narrowing of the lumen. Microscopically, Monkbug's arteriosclerosis is characterized by deposits of calcium salts in the media without associated inflammatory reaction, while the intima and the adventitia are spared. That means intima and adventitia will be normal and there will be only calcium salt deposition in tunica media. This is microscopic view of Monkbug's arteriosclerosis. You can see tunica intima and tunica adventitia are normal and there is calcium deposition in tunica media. This is stained by hematoxylin and eosin stain, and in HN stain calcium is stained bluish purple. Now we will start the discussion of atherosclerosis. Definition of atherosclerosis: it is thickening and hardening of large and medium sized muscular arteries, primarily due to involvement of tunica intima, and is characterized by fibrofatty plaques or atheromas. The term atherosclerosis is derived from the two terms athero and sclerosis. Athero means it refers to the soft lipid rich material in the center of atheroma, and sclerosis means scarring, means fibrosis. It refers to the connective tissue is present in the plaques. In atherosclerosis, there are intimal lesions called atheromas, also called atheromatous plaques or atherosclerotic plaques, that protrude into the vessel lumens. An atheromatous plaque consists of a raised lesion with a soft core of lipid that mainly composed of cholesterol and cholesterol esters and covered by a fibrous cap. Now, besides mechanically obstructing the blood flow, atherosclerotic plaques can rupture, leading to obstructive vascular thrombosis. Atherosclerotic plaque can also increase the diffusion distance between the lumen to the tunica media, that leads to ischemic injury of the tunica media and necrosis and weakening of the vessel wall, and changes that may result in formation of arterial aneurysm. This is the figure showing atherosclerotic plaque. You can see up on the above portion is the lumen and below is the vessel wall. You can see the fibrous cap and the central core. Central core is containing smooth muscle cells, macrophages, foam cells, lymphocytes, and fibrous cap is containing smooth muscle cells and collagen, and also in the necrotic center are cell debris, and below is the tunica media. Atherosclerosis underlies the pathogenesis of coronary, cerebral and peripheral vascular disease and causes more morbidity and mortality in the Western world than any other disorder. Roughly half of all the deaths in Western world occur due to the atherosclerotic vascular disease, and most commonly atherosclerosis affects coronary, cerebral and peripheral vascular disease. The prevalence and severity of atherosclerosis and ischemic heart disease are related to a number of risk factors. Some of these risk factors are constitutional, that means they are less controllable or non-modifiable, but others are acquired or related to specific behaviors and they are potentially controllable or modifiable, and these risk factors have roughly multiplicative effect. This table is showing major risk factors for atherosclerosis. Now, non-modifiable and modifiable. Non-modifiable means constitutional. These are genetic abnormalities, family history, increasing age and male gender. Then modifiable risk factors are hyperlipidemia, hypertension, cigarette smoking, diabetes and inflammation. We will talk about each and every risk factor. Now, genetics, constitutional risk factors. First is genetics. Family history is the most important independent risk factor for atherosclerosis. Certain Mendelian disorders are strongly associated with atherosclerosis. For example, familial hypercholesterolemia, but these account for only a small percentage of cases. The well-established familial predisposition to atherosclerosis and ischemic heart disease is usually polygenic. That means it is also related to some other diseases also, that relating to familial clustering of other established risk factors such as hypertension or diabetes. For example, if there is inheritance of hypertension, genes of hypertension or diabetes, then also there will be increased risk of developing atherosclerosis. Now, age is a dominant influence. Although the development of atherosclerotic plaque is typically a progressive process, it does not usually become clinically manifested until the lesions reach a critical threshold in middle age or later. Thus, between the ages 40 and 60, the incidence of myocardial infarction increases fivefold, and death rates from ischemic heart disease rise with each decade. Another risk factor is gender. Now, if all the other factors are equal, premenopausal women are relatively protected against atherosclerosis and its consequences compared to the men. Thus, myocardial infarction and other complications of atherosclerosis are uncommon in premenopausal women unless they are otherwise predisposed by other risk factors. These are diabetes, hyperlipidemia or severe hypertension. But after menopause, however, the incidence of atherosclerosis related diseases increases in women and at older ages even actually exceeds that of men. Now, there is a theory that the decreased risk in females of atherosclerosis in premenopausal age is due to favorable influence of estrogen on the body. Now, modifiable risk factors. First of all, the major one is hyperlipidemia, or also nowadays known as dyslipidemia. It is hypercholesterolemia and it is a major risk factor for atherosclerosis. Even in the absence of other risk factors, hypercholesterolemia is sufficient to initiate the lesion. Now, the major component of serum cholesterol associated with increased risk is low density lipoprotein, that is LDL cholesterol, also known as bad cholesterol. LDL is the complex that delivers cholesterol to the peripheral tissues, and in contrast, high density lipoprotein, that is HDL, is the complex that mobilizes cholesterol from the periphery including the atheromas and transports the lipid to the liver for excretion in the bile. So, HDL cholesterol is a good cholesterol. It removes the cholesterol from peripheral tissues. So, higher levels of HDL correlate with reduced risk of developing atherosclerosis. High dietary intake of cholesterol and saturated fats, that is present in egg yolks, animal fats and butter. Intake of cholesterol and saturated fats raises plasma cholesterol levels. Conversely, diets low in cholesterol or high in polyunsaturated fats lower plasma cholesterol levels. Exercise causes raise in HDL levels, whereas obesity and smoking causes decrease in the HDL levels. Total cholesterol. Desirable normal serum level of total cholesterol is 140 to 200 milligram per deciliter, while levels of borderline high are considered between 200 to 240 mg per deciliter, and elevation of total serum cholesterol above 260 mg per deciliter has 3 times higher risk of developing ischemic heart disease as compared with the people having normal cholesterol levels. Normal triglyceride level is below 150 mg per deciliter, and low density lipoproteins, that is LDL cholesterol, optimum serum level of LDL is less than 100 mg per deciliter. LDL is richest in cholesterol and has the maximum association with atherosclerosis. HDL, the normal desirable level of HDL is, it should be above 50 mg per deciliter. Now another risk factor is hypertension. It is also a major risk factor for atherosclerosis. Both systolic and diastolic levels are important, and it acts probably by mechanical injury to the arterial wall due to increased blood pressure. Elevation of systolic pressure of over 160 mm of mercury or a diastolic pressure of over 95 mm of mercury is associated with 5 times higher risk of developing ischemic heart disease than in the people with blood pressure within normal range, that is below 140 systolic and below 90 diastolic. Cigarette smoking is also a well established risk factor. Prolonged smoking, that is years of smoking of one pack of cigarettes or more daily, doubles the death rate from ischemic heart disease. The increased risk and severity of atherosclerosis in smokers is due to reduced level of HDL, deranged coagulation system, and accumulation of carbon monoxide in the blood. These three are the main effects of cigarette smoking. Cigarette smoking causes decrease in the level of HDL. It causes derangement of coagulation system. That means it causes hypercoagulable states, and there will be accumulation of carbon monoxide in the blood, and this accumulated carbon monoxide produces carboxyhemoglobin and eventually causes hypoxia to the arterial wall, that is causing ischemic injury to the arterial wall, favoring atherosclerosis. Now diabetes mellitus. It induces hypercholesterolemia and markedly increases the risk of atherosclerosis. Now, with all the other factors being equal, the incidence of myocardial infarction is twice as high in patients with diabetes than in those with non-diabetic. There is also an increased risk of stroke. There is cerebral stroke, and a 100-fold increased risk of atherosclerosis induced gangrene of the lower extremities in diabetic patient. Some of the additional risk factors are inflammation, hyperhomocystinemia, and metabolic syndrome. Inflammation is present during all the stages of atherogenesis and is intimately linked with the atherosclerotic plaque formation and rupture. Now, C-reactive protein, also known as CRP, is an acute phase reactant that is synthesized by primary liver. CRP is one of the simplest to measure and one of the most sensitive marker of inflammation. Its expression is increased by a number of inflammatory mediators, particularly interleukin 6, and plasma CRP is a strong independent marker of risk for myocardial infarction, stroke, and peripheral arterial disease. That means if a patient is having chronically raised CRP levels, then he or she will have increased risk for developing atherosclerosis. Hyperhomocystinemia. Elevated serum homocysteine levels, that is more than 100 micromole per liter, correlate with coronary atherosclerosis, peripheral vascular disease, stroke, and venous thrombosis. Low folic acid and vitamin B12 levels can increase homocysteine level. Metabolic syndrome, that is associated with obesity and is characterized by insulin resistance, hypertension, dyslipidemia, that is elevated LDL and depressed HDL, hypercoagulability, and a pro-inflammatory state. The dyslipidemia, hyperglycemia, and hypertension are all cardiac risk factors, while the systemic hypercoagulable and pro-inflammatory state may contribute to endothelial dysfunction or thrombosis. Now, pathogenesis of atherosclerosis. Pathogenesis of atherosclerosis relies on the hypothesis called response to injury. This model views atherosclerosis as a chronic inflammatory and healing response of the arterial wall to endothelial injury. Lesion progression occurs through interaction of modified lipoproteins, monocyte-derived macrophages, T lymphocytes with endothelial cells and smooth muscle cells of the arterial wall. Now, these are the various points showing pathogenesis of atherosclerosis sequence. These are endothelial injury and dysfunction, then accumulation of lipoproteins, then monocyte adhesion to the endothelium, followed by migration into the intima and transformation into macrophages and foam cells, then platelet adhesion, then factor release from activated platelets, macrophages and vascular wall cells inducing smooth muscle cell recruitment, then smooth muscle cell proliferation, extracellular matrix production and recruitment of T cells, lipid accumulation both extracellularly as well as intracellularly within macrophages and smooth muscle cell. Now we will discuss in details. Endothelial cell injury is the cornerstone of the response to injury hypothesis. Now, etiological agents for endothelial injury include hemodynamic disturbances, hypercholesterolemia, toxins from cigarette smoke, homocysteine, infectious agents, inflammatory cytokines, for example, tumor necrosis factor, immune complex deposition, irradiation or chemicals. But the most important are hemodynamic disturbances and hypercholesterolemia. Now, dysfunctional endothelial cells exhibit increased endothelial cell permeability, enhanced leukocyte adhesion, and altered gene expression. Now, hemodynamic disturbances. The importance of hemodynamic turbulence in atherogenesis is illustrated by the observation that plaques tend to occur at branch points and along the posterior wall of the abdominal aorta where there are disturbed flow patterns. That means when there is disturbance in any flow pattern, then there will be increased risk of developing atherosclerosis. When there is laminar flow occurring in any vessel, then there will be decreased chances of atherosclerosis. In vitro studies have demonstrated that non-turbulent laminar flow leads to the induction of endothelial genes, and these genes cause production of antioxidant, that is superoxide dismutase, and actually protect against the atherosclerosis. That means when there is disturbance in flow pattern, there will be increased in the risk. Now, hypercholesterolemia. Lipids are transported in the bloodstream bound to specific apoproteins, and combination of lipid and apoprotein forms lipoprotein complexes. Now, these lipoproteinemias or dyslipidemia are lipoprotein abnormalities that include increased LDL cholesterol levels, decreased HDL cholesterol levels, and increased levels of the abnormal lipoprotein A. These may result from mutations that lead to defects in apoproteins or lipoprotein receptors, or arise from other underlying disorders that affect circulating lipid levels, such as nephrotic syndrome causing hypercholesterolemia, then alcoholism, hypothyroidism or diabetes mellitus. These all the conditions cause dyslipidemia. All of these abnormalities are associated with an increased risk of atherosclerosis. The evidence, the proofs implicating the hypercholesterolemia in atherogenesis, that is pathogenesis of atherosclerosis, is also known as atherogenesis. The evidences includes dominant lipids in atheromatous plaques are cholesterol and cholesterol esters. Then genetic defects in lipoprotein uptake and metabolism that cause hyperlipoproteinemia are associated with accelerated atherosclerosis. For example, familial hypercholesterolemia caused by defective LDL receptors and inadequate hepatic LDL uptake can precipitate myocardial infarctions before the age of even 20. Other genetic or acquired disorders, for example diabetes mellitus, hypothyroidism, that cause hypercholesterolemia lead to premature development of atherosclerosis. Then epidemiological analysis demonstrate that a significant correlation is present between the severity of atherosclerosis and the levels of total plasma cholesterol or LDL. Now, lowering the serum cholesterol by diet or drugs slows the rate of progression of atherosclerosis, even causes regression of some plaques, and reduces the risk of cardiovascular events. Now, the mechanisms by which hyperlipidemia contributes to atherogenesis include chronic hyperlipidemia, particularly hypercholesterolemia, can directly impair endothelial cell function by increasing local reactive oxygen species production, and with chronic hyperlipidemia, lipoproteins accumulate within the intima where they may aggregate or become oxidized by free radicals that are produced by inflammatory cells. Such modified LDL cannot be completely degraded, and chronic ingestion leads to the formation of lipid-filled macrophages, also known as foam cells, and smooth muscle cells can similarly transform into lipid-laden foam cells by ingesting modified lipids, and uptake of modified lipoproteins stimulates the release of growth factors, cytokines and chemokines that create a vicious cycle of monocyte recruitment and activation. Now, inflammation. Chronic inflammation contributes to the initiation and progression of atherosclerotic lesions. Inflammation is triggered by the accumulation of cholesterol crystals and free fatty acids in macrophages. There is production of the pro-inflammatory cytokine, that is interleukin 1, which serves to recruit leukocytes including monocytes and T lymphocytes. The net result of macrophage and T cell activation is the local production of cytokines and chemokines that recruit and activate more inflammatory cells. Activated macrophages produce reactive oxygen species that elaborate growth factors that drive the smooth muscle cell proliferation and synthesis of extracellular matrix proteins, that is collagen deposition. Intimal smooth muscle cell proliferation and extracellular matrix deposition convert a fatty streak into a mature atheroma and contribute to the progressive growth of atherosclerotic lesions. Several growth factors are implicated in smooth muscle cell proliferation, including platelet-derived growth factor that is released by locally adherent platelets, as well as macrophages, endothelial cells and smooth muscle cells. Other than platelet-derived growth factor are fibroblast growth factor and transforming growth factor alpha. This figure is showing pathogenesis of atherosclerosis. You can see the upper portion of the figure is showing normal vessel endothelium, then intima, media and adventitia. Now, due to any chronic endothelial injury that may be due to either hyperlipidemia or hypertension, smoking, homocysteine, hemodynamic factors, toxins, viruses or immune reactions, there will be injury to the endothelium and there will be development of increased vascular permeability, leukocyte adhesion, monocyte adhesion and platelet adhesion. Then there will be conversion of monocyte into tissue macrophages, recruitment of the smooth muscle cells from tunica media, and there will be deposition of lipid, increased LDL in the tunica intima there will be engulfment of lipid by macrophages and smooth muscle cells. Last stage is development of proper mature atheroma containing central lipid core and covered by fibrous cap. You can see in the center there is debris of lipid, there is necrosis, presence of foam cells, that means lipid engulfed by smooth muscle cells as well as macrophages, and covering of fibrous cap containing smooth muscle cells and deposition of collagen. Now, morphology of atherosclerosis. Fatty streaks. Fatty streak is a initial lesion. Fatty streaks are composed of lipid filled foamy macrophages. Beginning as multiple minute flat yellowish spots, they eventually coalesce means combined into elongated streaks, that is approximately 1 centimeter long or even more than that. These lesions are not sufficiently raised to cause any significant flow. Now, morphology of atherosclerotic plaque. The key processes in atherosclerosis are intimal thickening and lipid accumulation, which together form plaques. Atheromatous plaques are whitish or yellowish and encroach on the lumen of the artery. And if there is presence of superimposed thrombus over the ulcerated plaques, it appears reddish brown. And atherosclerotic lesions are patchy, that is usually involving only a portion of the any given arterial wall, and on cross section it appears as eccentric lesion. In descending order, the most extensively involved vessels are the lower abdominal aorta, the coronary arteries, popliteal arteries, the internal carotid arteries, and the vessels of the circle of Willis. Now, atherosclerotic plaques have three principal components. Cellular component, that is composed of smooth muscle cells, macrophages and T cells. Then extracellular matrix including collagen, elastic fibers and proteoglycans, and lipid, intracellular as well as extracellular. Typically there is a superficial fibrous cap composed of smooth muscle cells and dense collagen. Beneath and to the side of the cap, that is shoulder of the cap you can say, is a more cellular area containing macrophages, T lymphocytes and smooth muscle cells, and deep to the fibrous cap is a necrotic core containing lipid, primarily cholesterol and cholesterol esters, and debris from dead cells. The periphery of the lesions demonstrate neovascularization, that means proliferating small blood vessels. Plaques generally continue to change and progressively enlarge through cell death and degeneration, synthesis and degradation of extracellular matrix, and organization of any superimposed thrombus. Moreover, atheromas often undergo calcification. Atherosclerotic plaques are susceptible to the following clinically important pathological changes. That may be either rupture or erosion or ulceration of the plaque, or hemorrhage into a plaque, or atheroembolism or aneurysm formation. Now, rupture or erosion or ulceration of the surface of the atheromatous plaques exposes highly thrombogenic substances and leads to thrombosis, which may partially or completely occlude the vessel lumen. Hemorrhage into a plaque due to rupture of the overlying fibrous cap or of the thin-walled vessels in the areas of neovascularization can cause intraplaque hemorrhage and expansion of the plaque. Then atheroembolism, plaque rupture can discharge the atherosclerotic debris into the bloodstream producing microemboli. And lastly, atherosclerosis induced pressure or ischemic atrophy of the underlying media with loss of elastic tissue causes weakness of the vessel wall, developing aneurysm formation, and it may be a potential rupture of the aneurysm. This is the figure showing progressive development of atherosclerotic plaque. You can see monocyte adhesion and emigration into the intima. They are converted into macrophages. Then macrophage releases various cytokines, for example interleukin 1, monocyte chemoattractant protein. Then LDL are accumulated in the tunica intima, they are oxidized and they are engulfed by macrophages and smooth muscle cells, and they become foam cells. There will be recruitment of smooth muscle cells from tunica media and deposition of extracellular matrix, that is collagen. Now this is the figure showing gross and microscopic view of fatty streak. Figure A is showing gross view of the fatty streak and figure B is showing microscopic view of the fatty streak. You can see the lipid containing macrophages over the vessel lumen. These are gross views of atherosclerosis in the aorta. Figure A is showing mild atherosclerosis composed of fibrous plaques, and one of which is denoted by the arrow, and figure B is showing severe disease with diffuse and complicated lesions including an ulcerated plaque. The open arrow is showing ulcerated plaque and the closed arrow is showing a lesion with overlying thrombus. This is the microscopical view of atherosclerotic plaque. See, L is lumen, F means fibrous cap, C means lipid core, central core containing cholesterol clefts, and figure B is showing elastic stain. The black peripheral stain is due to the elastic fiber stained by elastic stain. Now this is the figure showing atherosclerotic plaque rupture. Figure A is showing plaque rupture without superimposed thrombus, and figure B is showing acute coronary thrombosis superimposed on an atherosclerotic plaque with focal disruption of the fibrous cap. And in both the figures, the arrow shows the site of rupture of atherosclerotic plaque. Now, consequences of atherosclerotic disease. Large elastic arteries, for example aorta, carotid and iliac arteries, and large and medium sized muscular arteries, for example coronary and popliteal arteries, are the major targets of atherosclerosis. Symptomatic atherosclerotic diseases most often involves the arteries supplying heart, brain, kidneys and lower extremities. So the consequences are myocardial infarction known as heart attack, cerebral infarction also known as cerebral stroke, then aortic aneurysms and peripheral vascular disease, that is most commonly gangrene of the legs, are major consequences of atherosclerosis. Atherosclerotic stenosis. In small arteries, the atherosclerotic plaques can gradually occlude vessel lumina, compromising blood flow and causing ischemic injury. Critical stenosis is the stage at which the occlusion is sufficiently severe to produce tissue ischemia. And mesenteric artery occlusion and bowel ischemia, sudden cardiac death, chronic ischemic heart disease, ischemic encephalopathy and intermittent claudication, that is diminished perfusion of the extremities, are all consequences of flow limiting stenosis. Now acute plaque change is also a consequence of atherosclerotic disease. Plaque erosion or rupture is typically promptly followed by partial or complete vascular thrombosis, resulting in acute tissue infarction, for example myocardial or cerebral infarction, then rupture or fissuring exposing highly thrombogenic plaque constituents, then erosion or ulceration exposing the thrombogenic subendothelial basement membrane to blood, then hemorrhage into the atheroma expanding its volume. Plaques rupture when they are unable to withstand the mechanical stresses that are generated by vascular shear forces. The events that trigger abrupt changes in plaques and subsequent thrombosis are complex and include both intrinsic factors and extrinsic factors. Intrinsic factors include plaque structure and composition, and extrinsic elements are blood pressure, platelet reactivity and vessel spasm. Plaques that contain large areas of foam cells and extracellular lipid and those in which the fibrous caps are thin or have clusters of inflammatory cells are more likely to rupture, and these plaques are referred to as vulnerable. Now, thrombosis is also a consequence of atherosclerotic disease. Partial or total thrombosis superimposed on a disrupted plaque is a central factor in acute coronary syndromes. Thrombi in a coronary artery can also embolize, and thrombin is a potent activator of smooth muscle cells and can thereby contribute to the growth of the atherosclerotic. Now, vasoconstriction. It compromises the lumen size and by increasing the local mechanical forces can potentiate plaque disruption. Vasoconstriction at the sites of atheroma may be stimulated by locally released platelet contents, endothelial cell dysfunction with impaired secretion of endothelium derived relaxing factors, for example nitric oxide, and mediators released from perivascular inflammatory cells. This is the figure showing normal artery, then development of fatty streak, development of atheromatous plaque, then advanced or vulnerable plaque, then the consequences of atherosclerosis. There will be either aneurysm and rupture, or rupture of plaque and formation of thrombus causing occlusion of the artery, or there will be growth of the atheromatous plaque and progressive growth causes critical stenosis. This is the figure showing difference between the vulnerable and stable plaque. Vulnerable plaques have thin fibrous caps, large lipid cores, and greater inflammatory cells. And in contrast, stable plaques have thickened and densely collagenous fibrous caps with minimal inflammation and underlying small core of lipid. This concludes our lecture. Thank you very much.